Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of the Path to Profit podcast. I'm your host, Brad Dobson, and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Dr. Minette Riordan, and together here with our guest, Joe Metcalf today. Welcome, Joe.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
We're excited to have you and excited to talk about the Tao of Web, how to design your brand and website when you're in business. And this is such a huge topic, and I'm excited that you're going to be here to help narrow down the focus a little bit. And, you know, I've been in business 15 years, and it still feels like brand is always evolving. So Joe's going to shed a little light on that topic for us today, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm excited to do that.
Awesome. So let me start by sharing a little bit with you about who Joe is and how he and I met and why is he here on the Path to Profit podcast today. So, and of course, you know, when you're trying to do all this at once, getting all the notes in the screen. So if you're listening to the podcast, this podcast is also on YouTube. So it's always an interesting toggle between all the different pieces. But Joseph Metcalf is founder and creative director of AD-Logo-SPET-2015-LightArise Design. He's based down in San Diego, California. He's known for helping business owners and leaders define their brand, create exceptional targeted messaging, and build dynamic functional websites. I like that functional piece, as well as marketing platforms. He does live talks, online seminars, and he works one-on-one with clients. He's helped hundreds of businesses so far to grow and thrive, including mine and my clients. Joe and I met 2 or 3 years ago in a coaching program and just kind of hit it off from the start. And I've had the pleasure of not only working with him, but being able to send him some referrals. But Joe, I'd love to hear from your side personally. You've done a lot of different things. How did AD-Logo-SPET Design come into being, and why are you so passionate about websites and branding and all the topics you cover?
Yeah, I'd love to share that. And thank you for the wonderful intro. That was great, Minette. So as Minette said, we've worked together a little bit. We've known each other for a few years, and we met kind of in a time that was, you know, I was really diving in deep to my business. A few years prior to that, I was an active fine artist and became a little bit, you know, when I decided to make the jump from just creating art for myself and turn it into a business, there was a pretty big disparity between what it meant to make art and then what it meant to sell it. And while also finding a little discouragement there in the, you know, having to treat your art as a commodity and things like that, I also discovered a unique talent for marketing, recognizing brand, and sort of what it takes to sell anything really. And that became a really powerful catalyst to move into different venues of working for me. And all the while, I had been doing a lot of work in, you know, graphic design projects would fall on my lap, web projects, and I just found a niche for myself in doing that kind of work. Pairing the creative ability with the strategy and with the thoughtfulness and sales seemed to be a nice fit. And, you know, it's just grown from there. I entered a coaching program, which completely shifted my business. I'm sure a lot of you are recognizing that now. If you're working with Minette, it can be so powerful to have someone on your team and in your corner just helping you make those big decisions. And that's really what launched me into becoming a brand strategist and designer for larger companies, and you know, still working with individuals as well to help define their brand and who they are.
So I love that.
I want to interject a question here real quick.
Okay.
Sure.
Joe, have you met many people that combine the strengths like you're combining them, where you have the creativity part as an artist and the ability to do sales and branding? Because frankly, we haven't seen a lot of those.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you're a unicorn.
Wait, but you're two right here. That's me and Joe, right? You know,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a real balance. It's funny that you bring it up. I don't spend a lot of time on social networks, but I was on Facebook the other day, and this "Are you right brain or left brain" quiz popped up, and I was right in the middle, which I think may account for a lot of that, because being able to be a little bit analytical. And there's also that social aspect. I know a lot of creatives have that problem, you know, in social scenarios or speaking to larger groups. But there's a lot of factors there that, not to say they can't be overcome at all, but I think can be in your corner to help you out.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think it is that straddling one foot on each side that has made you successful and helps Brad and I work with a lot of creatives. But I'm curious, so our last podcast was all about talking about ideal client. And Joe, you and I have had that conversation. You know how excited I get about talking about who's your ideal client and how your clients struggle with that piece. And I know you've shifted a little bit your niche currently. So tell us a little bit about who your ideal client is and how did you come to that conversation. I know it sounds a little bit like it's off topic, but it's going to, I think, point us right back in the direction of why this is the first step in building a brand.
Sure, absolutely. So in the early days, you know, when I was making the choice to stop making art for money and start doing other things, namely graphic and web design, I really had a freelance mentality. And when you're in that position, you know, I mean, a lot of you listening to this may be designers as well, and you recognize that your services can be for anybody. But how do you market that? You know, you could go knock on every business door in your town and ask them if they need work, but that's pretty ineffective. And the first time I explored niche was when right after we met, Minette, and I think I was a little resistant in the beginning, but after a little coaching and coaxing, dove in and started working with coaches, consultants, trainers, and speakers. I recognized a huge need for our kind of services there. And then really kind of gravitated to, I guess, attracting more people that were in the creative industries. I work with a lot of interior designers now, worked with a few architects and photographers. And I think my background as an artist helps communicate with creatives. And then also, you know, the strategy planning and technical skills are of huge value. And I can't stress enough how important it is to do at least some target market or niche clientele work, because it really just shifts your ability to market, you know, who you're talking to. It's just such an invaluable exercise and effort to do for your own company.
So which really leads us right into the first question about how to stand out in a crowded marketplace. And marketing is a lot about positioning, but where do we start with that whole conversation? Where do you start with your clients when they come and say, I need a website?
Well, yeah, that's a great point to be talking on. So I find really often that clients come in, maybe they're asking for a website, maybe it's a business card, maybe it's a logo, but really, as a company and as a person, I always go to the root of it. Who are you? Who do you want to work with? And what are your values? And I know you share a lot of that process too in your coaching. I think those things are critical, especially if you're a small company, a solopreneur, a creative, any of those realms. When you are your brand, it's pretty important to define those things. And so I start with an exercise to discover core values. We do some work to discover the archetypes of your brand, and also to explore niche. And if those three things combined, then you can start creating a really strong brand. I like to say you have 5 seconds to make an impression. That's particularly true with a brochure or online. And so if your messaging isn't on point, if your visuals aren't a good representation of who you are and clearly marketed to who you want to talk to, then you're going to be missing some of those impressions. So strategy is really important. And I think what we're talking about now, that front end strategy of really getting down to who you are, who you want to work with, and how you deliver your services is key to a successful brand and marketing effort.
So, Joe, how do you find, or what advice would you give on working with a personal brand as opposed to working with a company brand for a solopreneur? We've run through this ourselves. Minette has a lot of personal brand, and we continue to market that. But we're also leveraging it to promote our Path to Profit Academy brand, which is our main brand. And I know, especially if you're working with designers or speakers or coaches, most of them start with a personal brand. And we always run into this question, should I promote myself, my own name, my own picture, or should I be promoting a company or some mishmash of the two?
And I wish it was a simple answer. It's really unique to each company. But in every case, I think it's really important to dig into the essence of the brand and the core values, whether you're working with a team, if I'm branding for a team, when we've got 5 decision makers, your CEO, CFO, the managing partners, if you will, it's equally as important to have each of them say, okay, what are the values of this company? What do you stand for? And because that's important for any scale of company to attract the right people. And if they haven't done a lot of good mission statement work or don't have their values or vision statement in place, it makes it really hard to design for them. So we always start at that point. And then when making the decision whether branding your company, you want to be an I or a we, which is I think what it really comes down to.
Yeah.
I always fall back to who is it that you want to work with, and does that clientele want to be working with a team that could appear to be 5, 20, 30 people, or do they want that personal one-on-one connection?
It's a great question. Great question. One of the things you talk about that seems connected to this is hope is not a strategy. Can you talk a little bit more about what does that mean, that hope is not a strategy?
Yeah, that's really about getting clients. I think a lot of businesses starting out, you can have some success. You work through your friends and family, your connections, and then what? You hope you get a referral. You hope someone will just pick up the phone and call you or stumble across your website. And that's not a plan. All of those are great ways to get clients. Referrals and word of mouth are like gold. That's where my best clients come from, and that's really a big effort of our marketing strategy. But that's just it. It's a strategy. We have a follow-up plan with clients that we worked with. We try to stay in touch. We continually tell people, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is the kind of client we're looking for. And that's a great way to attract clients and get word of mouth and referrals, but also be strategic about it and plan ahead.
I think that's that might be a thing that Manette and I, we run into personally every once in a while between the two of us. I'll hear that word hope and I kind of cringe. I'm just recently coming out of 20 years in the software industry, working as a cubicle worker. And the hope is not a strategy was, especially as not a management strategy, was a term that I used there. Because I would hear it come up in meetings, we're going to do this, and hopefully this happens. And I just cringe when I hear that word hope. At the same time, it represents a lot of positivity, and I'm positive. I'm thinking positive. And so I think it can have some interesting connotations to different people. But I tend to be like you. I think, Joe. It really does make me cringe when I hear people say, "I hope that we can do this," or "I hope that this happens."
Well, it's right up there with trying to, like, I'm trying to do this or I'm trying to do that. And
yeah, that's a word I use.
Yeah, I know. It's one of your favorites. I'm trying to. And so, Joe, when you're building websites for people, there's a lot of strategy involved in the website. But, in brand is just a place to start. But where do you go from there? I mean, I think this is one of the biggest questions we get all the time, and especially for creatives who do tend often to be a little introverted, I think contrary to popular belief, that they want to just sit home and build their business from behind their computer. And I'm the one saying, look, you got to get out there and meet people and connect with people. But there's some great strategies in building a website so that you have the combination of the personal and the online. Where do you start with people when it comes to putting that strategy into place?
Sure. And this really circles back to that initial conversation. In the discovery process, when we're talking about who they want to attract and who they are, that's kind of the defining of the essence of the brand. And now we need to make it work. So on our end, we talk a lot about how they deliver their services and what actions people are going to take on the website. And that's really where web strategy comes in, is envisioning when someone comes across this site, either through a landing page or the homepage, however they come upon it, what actions are they going to take, and how do you want to really control their behavior? Deliver information quickly and succinctly, so you're very clear about what it is and what solutions you provide, and get them to take some sort of action. And a lot of times that action could be pick up the phone or fill out a form. If you have the right business, it can be buy now, but for so many of us, the website isn't a tool to make sales, it's a tool to help set them up, create stronger leads, create conversations, just get people engaged with you. And that's a lot of the strategic push, is what are those things? What's your offer? Every web page, specifically the site as a whole, but each page on there should have some sort of an offer, whether it's click here to learn more or buy now.
It's a great question. Yeah. Brad, you want to add anything to that or ask another question related to that?
Oh, I think there's
I
just,
see your wheels spinning.
yeah, I mean, I'm fist deep in our website and landing pages every day. And so there's, I think we could go down a lot of different rat holes related to that.
Yeah.
I guess I just generally agree. It's, there's just, it's so important to get that first impression right.
It is. I'm sorry.
And then to make the conversion. The pages are there to inform the user and to have them take an action. And the bulk of the action you want them to take is an initial conversion to grab their email address. And then after that, it's, you know, making sales and things like that. There's so many nitty gritty strategies. I learned a lot of them from digital marketer courses and stuff. I guess bringing it back to topic, I'm interested in how we tie that to brand. So I'm creating landing pages in Ontraport. I'm creating blog posts in WordPress, and you know, really the only branding per se is a little bit of logo at the top of the website, and maybe some marketing that's specific to our ideal client. So I'm interested in how you have a brand focus when you're creating whatever the next landing page is or whatever the next blog post is.
Sure. That's a great question too. I feel like brand has two parts. One is the visuals. So of course you have, if you're talking about a landing page, you have your color scheme and your logo and the typeface for your website and all of that's in place. So it's, from a design side, it's consistent. And the other half is your languaging. So when we're talking about offers, your messaging, are you the type of company that is really in your face? You know, you can't afford not to buy it. Get in here and, you know, time is limited. Or is it more of an informative type where you're more of a nurturing type and you're helping clients step by step? And that's where brand comes into those specific actions on a, you know, you're really drilled in. Now you're talking about a landing page or a blog post. And I think brand shows up in all of those. It's in the tone, it's in the languaging, and it's in how you define how do you want to sell and what's that client experience like. And that's part of your brand, which each impression and each client you work with has a feel in a sense when they walk away from having dealt with you. And that's the other piece of brand, the core of it and the messaging. So
would you suggest that in terms of
it's a great answer.
Yeah, no, it has a lot of meaning. Would you suggest at a, you know, an actual nitty gritty level that, or maybe with your clients, do those branding items, are those things that are written down, they're in front of the web designer or the landing page designer in terms of, you know, these are the messages related to our brand, this is the consistency with the, you know, fonts, colors, all that type of stuff? Are they actually written down in front of somebody?
Yeah, well, ideally, yes. And if someone engages with us for a full brand consultation package, they walk away with a style guide in the end where we've gone through the exploration and defined all this. So it's basically a PDF flipbook where they can kind of the go-to resource, whether they're creating their own assets or engaging with a design company or a graphic designer. It's all there, and it includes, of course, the technicals like we spoke about, the logo, your brand colors and fonts, but then also what's at the core of this company, so your messaging stays on point. And you know, we've recently come up with a phrase that we call your ideal client's statement. Like, what would that client say if you did your job perfectly? You know, they've spent the year working with you, or they've engaged as a customer, and at the end of it, what do you want that client to say? And it's going to be unique for each company. That you want them to be satisfied, of course, and happy with their service or product, but there's something a little bit deeper. Do you want them saying, "Oh, that was so fun," or "I feel uplifted"? You know, where does that fall? And that can be a helpful tool in kind of crafting your messaging and your sales pitch.
I love that. And can you just speak a little more to, because our audience are all creatives, right? So they're all thinking about the color, they're thinking about the logos. Just talk a little bit about the consistency And two, is there a connection between colors and ideal client? It's not just me picking my favorite colors to go on the website, right? Or
right.
maybe it is.
It starts there, honestly. In the discovery process with the client, I ask them, what are your favorite colors? What feels like you? Mm-hmm. And that shows up in the outfits people wear, that shows up in, the color they paint their home. There's all kinds of ways that you see that. And I think you need to like your brand, especially when it's this personal, but you can't disregard your clients. If you're the type of person that, loves an eccentric mix of colors and you want every color on the rainbow on your website, it's going to create kind of a jarring experience. So it's really apparent that you want it to be you, but you also need to be really focused on who your audience is.
And how do you do that in a team? So, you mentioned a team of 5 decision makers, because I'm thinking even with just Brad and I, right? It's like we could spend hours debating small details like that. So what are some of the questions you ask when you are working with teams?
Well, when it's a team, it gets a little bit more disassociated from the person. So we look at what they have in the past. Do you have a brand presence? And likely they do. Maybe it hasn't been strategic, but they had this logo developed 4 years ago, but now they're using this brochure, and there's sort of this mishmash going on or something on the website. So we try to filter that to, is there a consistent color that's shown up the whole time? Mm-hmm. And then also pay attention to other industry trends. It becomes really clear if you're in, an ecological company or a landscaper or something, obviously green's going to be part of your palette. So we look at industry, we look at your past, and there's also, we also look at color trends. Pantone puts out a great color forecast that the fashion industry is going to use, and that's always a fun tool. And you look at some color psychology. What colors make people feel certain ways? And if you want kind of the turn and burn, let's move them through this site quick. Let's throw our offer in their face. There's going to be a lot of bright colors, reds, oranges. But if you want to keep them there reading, then we're going to soften the palette a little bit, blues and greens and cool tones.
That's fascinating. I love that. And then, Brad, I see you have a question, but just can you speak to the consistency piece? It's something we talk about a lot with our clients, and just consistent presence, but visual consistency is really important, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the hardest to achieve when you have more than one person working on it. So that's where, even if you're working on your own and you're not going to engage with a company to help you create your brand, define some colors and try to stick with them, and even write it down. If you are a designer, or if you're working in the back end of a website, there's going to be a 6-digit hex code for your color, and write that down so that you keep using it. And you can adjust it, why not? But stay consistent. And if you want to change it, change everything and then stay consistent again. So we see it pretty often, I'm sure you do too, where people are doing it themselves and they're getting it done, and that's great. But there have been all these independent actions, and now you've got this whole basket of stuff that looks a little bit different and maybe doesn't even appear like it's all the same company. Right.
Yeah. Super true.
Actually, speaking of change too, I think that certainly for us, we've transitioned from a couple different domains, a couple different looks and feels, a couple of different tools. So we launched a new website with a different theme, and then we're adding landing pages that we build out of our CRM Entreport, which has, and some of those have some existing colors that we're sort of like, oh, okay, we can use that color scheme. That looks cool. So we get this inconsistency. So I understand the consistency part, but there's also always change. So people want to use a different theme, or they want to rebrand a little bit, or it's 3 years down the road and this is looking stale. Do you have advice related to how to manage that, or how is it something that you encounter a lot of?
Absolutely, and that's, I think the update and then the consistency are sort of two different pieces. And absolutely, these days when you're using multiple tools to do your digital marketing, different platforms are going to have different templates. And I think my advice would be, don't skip over that front end piece of just picking it. Decide on something and use it for a while. And when we're talking templates and themes for different tools and integrations that you're using, I would say, I don't think I've ever encountered one where you couldn't fine tune things. So pick the framework that you like. And if it is a funny background color that's not on point with your brand, spend the extra 15 minutes. Maybe it'll take you a half hour, but it's well worth it to dig in and read the help article, whatever it takes to figure out how you switch that color or change the font. It'll pay off in the end because you're going to replicate that, you know, on your landing pages, your email blasts, or whatever that tool is. It's worth that extra time in the front end to make it right.
Yeah, this is fantastic advice because I see myself doing it. You know, I built a Facebook ad in Canva, and I've got a landing page in Entreport, and I've got a new blog post in WordPress and something else in an email system, and I haven't got consistent fonts. Maybe the best I've done is some consistent placement of a logo or something.
Sure. Yeah.
So
and you know, we're always our own best clients, right? And
we are, and that's the DIY world, right? You're doing the best you can. And
yeah.
Another client of mine who's a coach for interior designers, her motto is "Done is better than perfect."
Yes.
Which is true.
You got to get it going, not get it perfect. Because if you wait till you get it perfect, you'll never get it going.
And it's so true. But then you're going to have this come up where, okay, now I want to be bigger. I want better clients. I want higher paying clients. I need some consistency. I need a brand presence that really reaches out forward to that.
Yeah.
And what you've done over the last 3 years is just sort of cobble it together, which is great. It got done. You got here. But now it's time to, circle back, be strategic.
And that's when we hire somebody like Joe to do it all for us, to create the brand, you know, because it's one of my favorite. I know, right? It's one of my coaches I love. She always says you can't read the ingredients on the label from inside the jar. And
that's beautiful.
So true. Yeah, isn't that awesome? I love that analogy, because when we're inside of our own business, we don't even notice necessarily the inconsistencies or the struggles. But I'd love to circle back around to the strategy piece. We could keep you on all day, and we want to be respectful of your time. And that strategy leads right into the making money piece. And online today, that's so much about making offers. And you touched on this briefly, whether it's getting them to buy or give you their email address. Can you talk about how do we turn leads into customers?
Absolutely. This involves a little bit of content and a little bit of brand as well. I think a killer offer really needs to be, and I say this over and over again because it's so hard for people who are writing for themselves to do this, but it's 90% results and 10% how. It's so easy to say, especially, you know, in my line of work, I fall prey to this all the time. I want to say, you're going to engage with us and we're going to build this website and we'll use WordPress because you're this kind of client and blah, 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 blah. And really what that person on the other end wants to know is, okay, how is it going to solve my problem?
Mm-hmm.
And their problem likely is, I'm not getting enough clients, or I'm not getting the right clients.
Right.
So instead of, I'll use myself as an example again, instead of saying, this is how we go about building you a site, this is how we look at your brand. In the offer, it's, we're going to solve the problem of not having enough clients, and we're going to get you the right type of clients because we're going to be on point with your target market, with your messaging, and it's all going to come together in a perfect, succinct offer. And that's the kind of shift of saying, okay, let's define the problems that these clients of yours are having, and now let's present ourselves as a solution and stay there as much as you can. Some people want to know how. There's the technical type of people, the tire kickers at the car dealership. And so then it goes there, but make them dig a little bit deeper, and maybe you have a process page or a services page that really defines that. But in your offers, it needs to be definitely, here's your solution.
I love that. It's such a beautiful flow from our last podcast where Brad, we're talking about ideal client, and even the beginning of our conversation today, where everything has to flow from who they are and why are they even looking at our website, right? They're there because they have a problem that they need to be solved. And so can you talk a little bit, because, you know, we do work in our business with a lot of coaches, authors, and speakers like you have, and, you know, making offers is so important, but they don't want to be salesy. They're really nervous about being salesy. So
Sure.
how can we show up online in a way that makes us feel really good about that piece?
I think it comes from really believing that you have the solution. If you've clearly defined that problem for a client, and obviously if you're in a business where you're even going through the process of trying to recognize that, I'd hope that you care for these people and want them to have this solution. And if you come from that mindset, you're not really selling them anything, you're helping them.
Right.
And I think it's not a one-time thing, but if you can keep your thought process in, all right, I do have a great solution, and I am helping these people out. Yes, there's an investment involved, but and it's all going to come down to personal style and how you write that. But I think that mindset shift is really where it becomes a difference between feeling like you're selling them and just recognizing that you're providing a service that's really, really valuable, and so many times way more valuable than the cost that you put on it.
Yeah, it's so much a part of the conversation we have with our clients. And just a month or so ago, we did a 2-day workshop with our private clients around sales. And that if you totally approach sales from the perspective of just showing up in service, it shifts everything, right? And it's not about kicking tires or being that used car salesman that nobody wants to be. It truly is just showing up and saying, you have a problem. I may be the best person to solve that problem for you. Let's have a conversation about it. So I love how working online with people can really be about relationship building and then just moving them that step closer to that conversation. Brad, was there anything you wanted to add to that? Or Joe?
I was just going to interject that that flows from the coaching book that you
The Prosperous Coach.
The Prosperous Coach, where it's leading with value and giving. That's kind of what you were saying.
Yeah, and I think I love what you touched on there, Minette, because we just spoke about the big piece. Here's how I shift my mindset in order to sell and help these clients out. But if we want to be specific about our website, it's really worth the effort of defining what action do you want them to take. And it's important not to step too far, because if you've got, say, your service or product, whatever it is thousands of dollars. It's a lot to ask a person, unless, if you have a commodity in your price shop and all that, it's different. But if it's a service, it's a lot to say, go from read my homepage to buy this thing. And that's where what you said, it's about relationship and communication. Most time the offer on a web page or a website is get in touch. Or if you're collecting emails, it's here's the free gift, download this and we'll keep in touch that way. But it's really simple, small actions that you're going for. And that's what starts the conversation and gets them in your network. So often, and I think it becomes a little bit easier not to feel salesy if you're just saying, hey, let's connect.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great point. And is that part, when you talk about strategy, part of what you help clients with is kind of that sales funnel and how to move people online through that different layers of conversation?
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time really getting clear on how is it you deliver your services and how does this website fit as a tool within that? It's just one piece of your marketing. It's just one piece of your company. And more often than not, it's really about the lead side of it. And it helps as a sales tool because in that process, you can sort of prep them and, explain how you're going to solve their problem. So when you start that conversation, I don't want to say they're pre-sold, but they're definitely thinking that, all right, this is a person I want to work with. And their objection is, okay, what's the technicals? How do we get started? What does it cost? Little things like that you achieve with a phone call or, other methods.
I love that. And so it kind of leads nicely right into our last question for you. We've talked a lot about the services and you offer, Brad's talked a little bit about how he's in that DIY place. Let's talk a little bit about, do we do it ourselves or don't we? And how do you know when you're ready to go from DIY to investing in someone to support you?
Sure. And so DIY, it's getting easier and easier these days. There's amazing platforms out there. Every web host company has their easy to use web builder. There's companies dedicated to that. I think easy to use has a huge range of whether that's accurate or not and how computer savvy are you. So there's all the technicals of it. If you're capable of doing it and you can work in those platforms, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, there's all of them out there, then I think it's fine. Go ahead and do it yourself. But again, it loops back to strategy. You need to have a plan. You need to be clear about your messaging and your clientele, and then you can have a successful do-it-yourself project. I think I read a statistic in researching this. I think it's something like 96% of do-it-yourself website projects never launch.
Wow.
So
that's horrible.
It's bad. And there are a few questions you really need to be clear about. Can you write? Can you organize this and strategize this plan? And then can you figure out the technicals? And if you can do those three things, then sure, make a plan and dig into this and get it done. And to answer your question about when to move out of DIY, I think for us, we like to know that the client is actively out there getting clients. Do you have a business yet, or is it still an idea? If it is an idea and you want to engage with a designer and a brand consultancy, you better have a great plan. If you're, a small business or even working on your own, get out there and meet people, get your clients, get it going, and then let's talk about creating the brand, creating the website. First, you need to define how it is that you work, where, what are you going to do with these people? What's your best method of providing your service? And then it goes a long way to creating that strategy, because you know what you're going to do with these people once they engage.
Awesome. I think that's great advice. Anything else you want to ask Brad?
No, you're hitting all the big points. I think the DIY thing it resonates with me. I was in software for years, and so I'm comfortable bopping around in all this stuff. I did web work for quite a bit, but we tell all of our clients you have to have a website. You can't. I mean, yes, you need a plan, and you need to be getting clients, but it's really important for you to have at least a presence online. At the same time, we also tell them you need to have a technical person to work with, unless you're comfortable in that space. I think so I don't know. I guess I'd value your input on that. Our thinking is that, yes, our clients absolutely need some presence online to start. And we think that the vast majority of them would be much better served by hiring a web person to get them underway. I know that's a very basic thing compared to a complete brand strategy around a website, but we kind of need them to take that step.
I think and I've seen it so many times that it goes back to that statistic, 97%, and it's a complicated project, not because the user interface is hard of whatever platform you're on, but because it puts a person in a position where they need to write about themselves. They need to overcome their fear of being salesy. They need to put together all these pieces and come up with a plan. And a lot of that is out of their comfort zone and out of their expertise.
Yeah.
So and I think you're right, some brand presence is essential. And maybe it's a simple 3-page website, your homepage, who you are, and some kind of a conversion tool. And so I think don't bite off more than you can chew. Have a good plan in place, and really think about what your time is worth, because it's going to take you a long time to build your own site. And you may be thinking about the investment is too much, I can't hire somebody. But if you really do the math and value your time, are you actually saving any money?
Yeah, it's
a great point.
Will it ever get launched?
Right. Yeah. And great reminder, Joe, that it doesn't have to be fancy to start. Like when you look at my website or Path to Profit Academy, and there's a lot going on there. I think at this point I have 500 or 600 blog posts, but I've been doing this a long time. Mm-hmm. And so not to compare yourself, if you're just starting out and you're listening to this podcast today, to what other people that have created that have been in business for a long time. And what Joe said, I love that, 3 pages, your homepage, probably a contact page, and an offer page with products and services and a way to get in touch with you. Brad always reminds me, I love to write. The writing piece is easy. So blogging for me is easy, and I'm a fan of blogging, but not everybody is. And so you don't even need that piece to start, is what I hear you saying.
Absolutely. And I advise clients a lot of times, if they're not already writing, I won't build them a blog into their website until they feel like they can include that in their bandwidth. Otherwise, it doesn't get updated. It's just this other to-do that nags at them when their efforts could be spent, or else, go getting clients doing their work.
Right.
And if it comes to the time that, I'm, having some great thoughts and I'm capturing it on paper, and then it's probably time to start blogging. But
I love that. Great insight. So much great information. So just to kind of recap, I love the part about your brand has to start with being a combination of who you are, your core values, as well as your ideal client. Strategy is everything. Don't even get started unless you have your strategy in place. It's critical. Hope is not a strategy. I love that. Loved everything that you shared about how to take people from just idea to getting themselves launched online. So much great information. Will you tell people where they can find you online, how to get in touch with you, or whatever next steps that you want them to take?
Absolutely. So again, my company is Arise Design. You can find us at arisedesigngroup.com. And there's a lot of information there, as work that we've done, but the easiest way to get in touch, there's a link there where you can connect and schedule your own strategy session, or of course email and get in touch. I'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation if anybody's interested, just to share more and kind of dig into where they're at in their own company. I'm passionate about helping people build their companies, and everybody needs a little bit of support. And whether end up working with someone or just having a quick conversation and shedding some light on where they're at, I'm pretty passionate about that. And I think you probably sharing that a little bit. I've seen a lot of your work, and
yes.
I know you're helping a lot of people out.
Yeah. And I also love having those conversations with people, but I just want to acknowledge you because it's a very generous offer and people should take advantage of it. We'll put that link again to the arisedesigngroup.com in the show notes, as well as the direct link to schedule time to talk to Joe personally. And Brad, any last words or thoughts from you?
I'm telling you, I'm sold. This was a fantastic interview. I really thank you so much, Joe. I think you provided our listeners with just a ton of value, which at the end of the day is why we're doing this podcast. Yeah. And I really hope people take you up on your offer.
I hope so too. And this was a delightful conversation. Brad, Minette, thank you so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
It's great to have you, Joe. We appreciate your support and your insight, and just love seeing your face. We've had phone conversations, but it's fun to see you face to face if people are watching on YouTube, and just to hear your voice. And it's Joe and I have grown a lot in the last couple of years since we met, and to see that I think we share a lot of common values and we practice what we preach. We walk our talk. So everything you hear Joe and Brad and I talking about today, we're all implementing on our own in our own businesses because we know that these strategies work. So take to heart, go get that plan in place. We love talking about plan and strategy, and get on the path to profit and stay there.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.